CodeFund Podcast Network.
This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Linode. Whether you're working on a personal project or managing your enterprise's infrastructure, Linode has the pricing, support, and scale you need to take your project to the next level. Get started on Linode today by going to linode.com/remote-ruby.
This is Remote Ruby.
Have you any remote ideas to the meaning of the word?
What's up?
Hey.
Howdy.
Hello.
We have Josh. I think you're our first return guest.
Am I?
I think so. So Andrew and Nate, were both guests, but then they became panelists. I think this is the first time we've talked to someone before, and they've returned. So welcome back.
Nice. Well, that's an honor. It's great to be back. And yeah, I loved chatting with you guys the first time. Always love chatting with you. So I was looking forward to this today, especially with, I'm not chatting with many people these days. So
And you're back on Twitter now.
Yes, I am. I am back on Twitter. I had left last fall or something. But yeah, I kind of caved the last month or something.
You didn't pull the Ryan Bates and disappear forever, and then I pop up for a week.
Yeah, I guess I could have. I really dropped the ball on it. I could have created a bunch of intrigue about my whereabouts and and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know. I've been like everyone else. I've been feeling the disconnect, and I realized I'm not going to be seeing anyone at conferences for a while. I don't know how long, and so yeah, Twitter. It's not the best place for keeping up with people personally, but it's better than nothing at the moment. So
yeah. I was looking at my calendar the other day and looked at next week, and I was like, oh, we would have been at RailsConf, but
I know it's so sad.
Are there any sort of viewing party things going on for the RailsConf online stuff? I wonder.
There is Mike Parham and actually Honeybadger. It was Mike's. This is Mike's thing, so I don't want to take any credit. But he just announced a hallway track, a virtual hallway track thing. You can go to his blog. I think it's mikeparham.com. You can look him up on Twitter or whatever. But basically, it's a series of 12-person meeting rooms that you can kind of just drop into randomly, kind of the hallway track at a conference, and just randomly chat with people. So yeah, he's hosting one with Sidekick, and then we're hosting a room as well. And I think there's a couple of them.
The thing I look forward to the most at RailsConf is the random one-off event that Honeybadger will put on.
Yeah, it's so sad because we had a really good one for this year that we're super excited about. We were going to be the lounge sponsors. So, they usually have the just lounge hangout area on the conference floor or whatever. We were going to sponsor that, but it was it wasn't going to be not a booth or anything. It's just basically a place to hang out. And we were going to call it the Indie Lounge. And it was going to be basically a place for all the smaller, either bootstrapped or solo developers in the community that are building things or selling things. It would be a place for them to kind of, get some sponsor action, bring their swag and stuff. So super bummed that couldn't happen, but maybe next year.
It was going to be in your backyard too, right?
That it wasn't, but that's not it. It could have been the after, the after party could have been at my fire pit.
You're pretty close, aren't you, to Portland?
Yeah, I'm right across. I'm in Vancouver, Washington. So that's, it's right across the river from Portland. So it's kind of considered the greater Portland area. So it would have been it's a 20-minute drive to the event center from here. So I hope they bring it back.
It's funny. It's been in Portland before. I'm not wrong in that, correct?
Yes, it was. I think it was. I want to say 2013.
Okay,
and I know that because we kind of launched Honeybadger. We launched in 2012, and then we went to our first RailsConf the next year, and it was here. Okay. And we couldn't afford any tickets, so we kind of just went and just bombed the hallway track ourselves.
So I remember I got into Rails 2012. I remember seeing RailsConf 2013 in Portland, 2014 was in Chicago. But I remember thinking around that time, I've got to go to a RailsConf because it'll be an excuse to finally go to Portland to get out to the West Coast. And then I started going, and it was Kansas City, Cincinnati, San Antonio, New Orleans, all places around me. And
yeah.
So then I was oh, they're going to Portland. And then Corona's no, you're not.
Nope.
So, nope. One day I'll get there. I've been to
Yeah.
Portland, Maine.
Yeah, that's definitely not the same place.
I think the only time I went to Portland was in college. We flew out to Portland, rented a car, and drove to Bend and went to Ruby on Rails. That was really fun. I just remember I think the bar opened at 9 a.m. and we just
It did. It was all
had a
day
lot
long.
of drinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I was always surprised. That was one of my favorite conferences, and not necessarily just because of the beer. I mean, it was just such a cool location, idea, just everything. But I was always surprised about how few times it actually devolved into some sort of drunken, crazy thing.
Right.
Everyone drinking all day. It's still everyone seemed to manage hold it pretty well.
Yeah, it was really funny. One of the things I remember the most was I loved the venue because it was in, what was it, an old school or something? But there was
I think a theater maybe.
yeah. And it was love seats and then a pulpit that the speaker would go in, which is pretty awesome. And then the last talk on the second day, I remember that people had extra beer tickets. And so they brought up 7 beers for the 2 speakers to drink during their talk before the conference ended. And it just got real bad fast. It was
Really?
hilarious.
I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't there for that one, or yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I don't remember what year that was, 2011 or something.
Okay.
I was just getting into Rails and stuff, and I didn't know anybody. We may have been there at the same time, and I didn't know anyone.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't know a ton of people or as many people then either. I think I went to 3. I don't know. I want to say 3 or 4 of them, but I probably missed the first couple too. So we might have missed each other.
Yeah, it's funny how a small world it was, and there's been so many changes in conferences over the years too. The first one I ever went to was Ruby Midwest in Kansas City, and made a bunch of friends there. And then it was an extra year or 2 or something, and kind of died off after that. And missed that one too.
I think 2014 was my year of conferences. That's when things were starting to really take off with the business, and we had a budget for traveling and conferences and things, and also Ruby. That was just a really good time for Ruby regional conferences. There just seemed to be it seemed every major hub and even smaller cities and things had one. So you could basically travel all year just to Ruby events if you wanted to, and it was a lot of fun. It was a long year though.
Yeah. It felt like there was a lot of great little groups because Ruby Midwest, the first year was at a university or something, and there was, I don't know, 100 people there or something. But I really like those small ones because you get to go chat with just about everybody if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. I always liked the more the smaller regional ones better too, for the same reason. Just, it's really cool. And also you get to hear they usually bring in locals. So there's some local speakers and you get to hear from more people. Yeah.
I think that first conference I ever went to, I remember Chris Wanstrath from GitHub gave the keynote or something. And then I was very new to Ruby. And the second talk of the day was about, eigen classes and all this pretty deep Ruby stuff. And I remember listening as hard as I could because I was oh, this is important. And then I just had a headache the rest of the day for all that. I was man, it's pretty technical, but it was good. There was a good variety of stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What's new at Honeybadger since we last spoke?
We've hired a few people. I don't remember how many. Were we still just 3 people, just the 3 founders when we talked? I don't remember. It's been...
I feel like we were.
Yeah, it probably. So yeah, we've hired 2 people since then. Ben Findley and Kevin Webster. Ben's our marketing manager and Kevin's our first engineering hire. And they are both awesome. So yeah, that's been cool. We were actually going to bring on our second engineering hire. It was supposed to be this month, but unfortunately with the turn in the economy and everything, we were really sad that we had to kind of put that on hold. And it was, we were pretty bummed because they were really awesome and we were excited, but kind of got to take things as they happen. But otherwise things are good.
What's the transition like? I'm curious, going from just 3 co-founders to employees. Like, was that just normal for y'all? Was there kind of some?
We've had to I don't know. We've kind of tried to keep things pretty, because we were pretty unorganized before in the way that we did things. Like we've talked about this a lot, other places. Like we kind of run the company like 3 freelancers because that's how we started it. So we all kind of work like that. Like, we work independently, remotely on whatever we kind of you feel like working on at the time. So we've kind of tried to keep that, bring a little bit of that to the team still. Like people pick their projects. We actually do 30-hour weeks. And even that is like kind of at your discretion. So it's very, very laid back environment. But at the same time, we've had to bring in a little bit more structure here and there. But we try to kind of, apply more structure when it's needed versus trying to, change everything at once.
Kind of similar to how Pody operates, because I was employee 7, I think, 8, and we're at 20 now. But it wasn't just like overnight. Yeah. It was like, here's all our rules. Like it was, as things come up, they kind of show they need structure. And it's like, okay, we'll put something in here. And it's been, it's made it a pretty smooth transition.
So that's definitely a much bigger jump. I think we found that documentation has been crucial. So we've been creating a lot of documentation, and basically everything gets written down and, documented. And we try to create some sort of offline or process, asynchronous process for it, which works really well in the remote environment. So we definitely have more we have a better handbook now. We have onboarding, checklists and scripts and things to set people up. And that's all really been really good to kind of develop.
There was something that you released recently that caught all of our attention. Heya. So I saw it on Reddit and I was like, what is this nonsense? And then I realized that you had released a open source package, and I would like to hear more about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So this has been kind of my side project at Honeybadger for the past, I don't know, it's been a long time because I kind of worked on it, started it, and then tabled it for a long time, and then more recently picked it back up and decided to finish and ship it. But what it's called Heya. And that's kind of like the introduction. If you have the introduction to an email where you just say, hey, how's it going? Wavy hand. What it is it's a campaign mailer for Rails. So it works a lot like, sending email in Rails like you're used to, with Action Mailer. It uses all the same stuff. You can create templates and the API is very similar. But this allows you to send sequences of emails that are time delayed and segmented. So it's a little bit like solving the same problem that Intercom or Customer IO do as a SaaS, software as a service model. But this is just an engine for Rails. So you drop it in, it's a gem, you run a generator to install it, all the things you're used to, and then you can create email campaigns that you can add people to in your Rails app.
This is a feature I've wanted in Rails for quite a long time, because if you don't need something too complex. I'm using ConvertKit right now, and it's expensive. It adds up pretty fast. They have a free tier now, which helps, but a lot of this stuff is do I need that? No. Yeah. You have to worry about syncing customers and tagging them and API keys and whatever else. And it's you already got your emails set up for, forgot your password and all your other transactional stuff. And it feels like this stuff, you can get it way cheaper paying your transactional pricing, for sending these out. And
yeah,
I like it.
The other so pricing is one reason. This kind of came about Intercom, we were Intercom customers for we would use them to send user onboarding emails. So when you sign up for Honeybadger, you get a series of emails that teach you how to use the product basically over a course of the first week or two. And then there's other emails when your trial is ending and some other things you want to convert people to, enter their payment details and things. And we were doing this in Intercom, but Intercom has kind of been notorious lately for their just ridiculous pricing model. And I mean, I got to hand it to them. They are really good at squeezing money out of their customers. So I understand, they're kind of more of they're going up market. They're an enterprise tool, or they're going after more of the enterprise market, I think, right now. But that just, that's not working for us. And we were paying, I think, one point, like it was up into the thousands of dollars that we were paying them monthly just to like send email and support our customers basically. And then on top of that, we weren't like super happy with the product in general, like at least for us, like I don't know about you, but like I don't love the little intercom operator buttons that pop up on things like everywhere these days. Like, so we'd already kind of like removed that from our app, gone back to more of a standard like email kind of support model. And once we did that, it was like, well, we could just like move to Help Scout for like actually move back to Help Scout for support and then find something for email, and we don't have that bill anymore.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like I used to use it for something, and yeah, it is. I mean, it was cool before it got to be a bit, now that they're rolling in like sales and support and everything and knowledge base and all that, funneling it through the widget, it gets annoying. And then the pop-ups and the little ding and whatever. And I'm like, just let me use the site, please.
Yeah. A lot of the things they had been adding, we weren't really using, like product tours and some of that stuff. And I mean, we're a little bit unique, like in that we're a developer tool, and developers have very unique tastes in like, UIs and things they interact with, and typically don't want a bunch of interference. They just want to get things done. And so that, doesn't really work as well for us, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking while you were describing it, like for my side projects, I usually like funnel stuff through like into MailChimp and have MailChimp handle all that. And it's just extra baggage, because one of my projects, like I even have like a co-founder who is like supposed to be kind of like doing that, like handling the MailChimp stuff. But a lot of times I still end up in MailChimp, like setting up the emails. And so like, it sounds like the dream to just stay in Rails and do all that.
Yeah, that's the other major benefit, I think, of this approach is the integration cost that you have with the other tools. Like you said, the syncing, managing multiple copies of user data, like across, a bunch of tools is just, in my experience, it's kind of a special hell. Keeping things up to, keeping things synced, especially when you get into like your, sending event data and like not just like your actual like user database, but you have like events, you have like behavior, like what are they doing? Like you might want to respond to certain things as they happen. All that stuff becomes like more and more complex, like the more tools you layer on top of each other, basically. And so, yeah, we had kind of gone further down like that path. Like we were using Segment, which is another marketing tool that basically like acts as a data warehouse, and like it distributes all of that data to all the tools. So you can like, you only have to manage one integration. But even then, like you've got this, stack of tools that you have to manage just to get your data around. And
we integrated with Segment at a previous job, and I remember, I think it was Intercom that gave me some trouble because at least at the time, their events or something, they wouldn't let you filter on metadata or something. One of the tools we were integrating with wouldn't.
Yeah.
So we could do stuff like, user took this action and then have metadata on the specific thing they did. But then for like, one service, we'd have to do an exception and send a different event. And then, it was like, this doesn't really help us because now we might be sending data to the same or to all these services in one way, but now we're sending duplicates and we got to filter those differently. Totally. And it was a mess.
Yeah. Those little idiosyncrasies between them, like I ran into similar things, like event naming schemes. Even like, I think like I tried to integrate with one tool and it wouldn't allow periods in event names. And we use like dots, like periods to separate like action. I don't know, like what basically namespace are events, because, we're developers and that looks good to us, I guess. But a lot of the marketing tools aren't built for that. They're not built for that. They're built for like basically just sentences for their events. And so like, so like it was like replacing things with underscores. And so then we had like different naming patterns, and it was just like, huge pain.
You never want to have to deal with that. And like those exceptions just start to add up over time, and it's a mess.
Yeah. I get like why companies, I get why that whole market exists, but for like I realize that we're a 5-person now company. It runs a SaaS for developers, and pretty much we're all developers. Like Rails is almost like it's a way to automate. Like there's a lot of automation built into it. So there's a lot of advantage to being able to just like have your user database and then just do everything in the app if you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah,
so I think it makes sense on a number of levels.
And you're already sending out notifications and other emails. So like the onboarding stuff really, it's got to be integrated into your app anyways. If you're telling MailChimp to send it, you still have to do that. So it's not a whole lot different to like build it in, with the gem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to give a overview of like how it works? And I want to hear more about, because I don't know that there's a whole lot of projects that are licensed like yours, where it's like free for open source, and then there's kind of a trial for commercial projects. I want to hear more about that too. Yeah.
So the Rails engine, I'm assume we'll link this up in the show notes. We do have it's got like an actual like official website, which is heya.email. So that's you can just go to that and you can find the code and everything. But the way it works is like in Rails, you have like to send emails with Action Mailer, you have like a one-to-one mapping for like your mailer files. So you have like app mailers, like whatever your mailer is, user notifier or something. And then you can add emails to that. You have templates that respond to actions. So Heya works very similar to that, except it stores its campaign files in app campaigns. So when you generate a campaign, it creates a new file in app campaigns and then the name of your campaign.rb. So it's a Ruby file. And from there, inside that file, you basically define steps like you would in an action mailer. You would define emails basically that you would send to people, except it calls them steps. You define them with a step method. So basically, you define a series of steps, and this is all just a Ruby DSL. Each step can have a wait time and a few other options. So the wait would basically say how long you want to wait before sending this email. When it's sent to the user, then they would go on to the next email, and that email would say, wait this long. So they could be different between emails. And one of the cool things is that you can also segment each campaign. You can segment at different levels, but you can segment at like the campaign level and then the individual email level. So at the campaign level, it would say like, should this user enter this campaign at all? And basically it just would run them through a Ruby block that passes in the user, and you use whatever's on your user to determine if that's true or false and return that. And then that's basically what a segment is in Heya. So you can do that at the campaign level, and then at the individual email level, you can do the same thing. So say like you had an email that was like specific to a feature of your application. Like in Honeybadger, we have a feature called uptime monitoring. So it's basically like a pingdom type thing where it pings your app. So we have an onboarding email for setting up an uptime check. Well, that email can have like it's segmented so that people who have already set up an uptime check won't get that email. So it lets you create like kind of dynamic campaigns that don't bug your users, that don't need to be.
And this is all like auto connected to the action mailer stuff behind the scenes, so you don't have to write mailer things.
Yeah, that's right. It's all pretty. So it's backed by its own action. It has an action mailer that it uses to send everything. And currently to actually like define your email contents and everything, like it's all action mailer under the hood. So it's a very similar pattern for creating your templates. You can create multi-part like, HTML and text templates for your emails, as well as layouts and things like that. I like to use a gem called Maildown, which is a markdown templating gem for action mailer. And so it's really cool. Like you can basically, instead of creating your HTML and text templates that are like for multi-part emails, you can create just a markdown file. And this gem will actually generate those for you. So you write your email in markdown, and then that's it. So basically you're just adding a markdown file for each step, and you're done.
That's handy, because then you don't have to worry about your layouts and stuff as much.
Yeah. It's pretty useful. And I like to write my content in markdown anyway. So I found it's a really nice flow for like creating these campaigns.
Cool. Yeah, it looks good. I like the steps are just in order, so you can see that pretty easily, and skip whatever if they're not in the segment and all that.
The one important thing about the steps is that like part of the magic to all of this is that they each have a unique name. And that's how the system knows like not to send the same email to people. So I would say that's the one like caveat that you need to know that like you don't want to rename your steps because then it would like the system wouldn't know that they're different. So as long as you keep, you don't want to like, as long as you keep them the same name and they're all unique, and it'll tell you, if you try to define one twice or something. But yeah, then it'll know not to send it to them again.
So it's keeping track of those things in models that you add to the application?
Yes. So this whole system is backed by 2 database tables. Basically, like one is membership, so like who's part of a campaign, and the other one is receipts, so who's received a campaign step, basically. And yeah, it's a fairly like the data model is fairly light, which I really like about it. But it's also it's all there, so you can query and see like who's received what, and it's you don't have to kind of guess like who's going to receive like the next thing.
Yeah, because like if you wanted to, you could build like a dashboard page that shows your funnel or whatever, your campaign, and then like how many people are in each bucket.
I have that's probably a feature I'll add in the future. Like if if we end up wanting, like it's something I'd like eventually. Like it's not crucial to me right now, but I'll probably add it. Also, if other people find it, if that's requested, I'll probably add it. But I'm still trying to decide like there's no like UI aspect of this outside of just the Ruby DSL. So I'm trying to figure out what the balance there should be.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like something like Sidekick kind of needs it. Otherwise, you have no idea what the state of the world is. But then this is simple enough because you've got all of those models, so you can just query them as long as you take a look at the data in there and figure out how to query for each step or whatever. And it's probably not as bad as like, people are probably less likely to know that the query to pull up the Redis jobs, for Sidekick, but they're used to querying models, so it's not as probably more familiar, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Like my plan is kind of to like right now. My plan is to like I'll probably have some kind of like UI dashboard, but I want to keep it relatively lightweight. Like I don't want to get super deep into the weeds on like some of the marketing automation software as a service out there is like like I don't know that I'll ever build in like complex open and click tracking and like some of the other stuff that you have a lot of reporting and stuff for. That's just really not what I'm going for here.
You should make your goal to get on Hey's block list so you can be publicly shamed.
for the publicity. if I get David to tweet about me one way or the other. Funny story on Hey. So I picked the name Heya, and actually like I don't have a logo, but if I did, it would be the waving hand emoji because I use that kind of as like Heya with the waving hand emoji. And this was back like June last year, I think. So long before Hey had been announced, like it was a thing, but it was it was still like dark mode. And so when they announced the name Hey, and their like logo is it's not an emoji, but it's like a waving hand, and it's like literally an email tool. Like I was just like, oh, am I gonna have to rename this thing? Because like it or not, I'm their base camp, and I am not. So granted, like the scope of this is like much smaller. It's just sending email campaigns. So I did reach out to David and just like got his opinion on it, and he's like totally cool. Like he was actually pretty awesome about it. Like he thought it was a cool project, and he's like, yeah, go for it. Like I don't have any problem with the naming. So
that's super cool.
Yeah.
I was just going through the code and I came across your queries, all your SQL.
Oh God.
Well, so this is like, we've been working on emails at Podia because like we do, like for our customers, they can send like newsletters and drip campaigns and things like that. I didn't write any of the original code, but I do now maintain some of it and like add on to it.
Okay.
And so my coworker, Basil, who worked on the project with me, he was telling me, we were talking about Heya. He was telling me he was listening to an episode of Founders Quest where you're, I guess, talking about the sequel.
Yeah.
And it was like validating to him that like we were doing the same thing.
Really? Okay. Well, that's validation to me then, because I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm still not sure I do. But
It's really tricky. Like, newsletters aren't so bad because it's like send this email, but drip campaigns, like, because not only is it like I should send it, X days from now, but like, what happens if for some reason the job failed before? Like,
you want that redundancy,
right? And like,
yeah.
And then if it doesn't go out, if it goes out a day late, should the next one continue on to go like 2 days after that was sent? Like, there's just a lot of like nuance to it. So I'm really excited that you have solved this problem for my own projects.
Well, no, I don't know. Like, hopefully. So this was actually like that was the hardest part of this project, was just because the entire thing is basically like, I almost look at it like it's basically just a SQL project. Like, it's got like the Ruby was easy, but figuring out the SQL, and actually like I probably made it harder than I needed to. But I wanted to, like, from the beginning, I wanted to make it like somewhat ready to scale, at least kind of sort of scale. Like, it's not built for like tens of thousands of emails in campaigns probably, or hundreds of thousands or something, but thousands, like, I think it would handle pretty well without like going in and like starting to address some of the things that would arise, But yeah, it's like even just the work of iterating over people that need to receive an email and trying to like do the work to determine, like, should they get this email? When do they get this email? If I've got like, I don't know, 20,000 people in a campaign, do I want to iterate over them like 20,000 people, like every 3 minutes or something to determine if they need to I need to send it now or wait? So I try to solve some of those, like design the system basically to what the queries do is they basically take each step, like each message that someone would receive, and then run a single query to pull all the people that should receive that step right now. So if there's people in the database that don't need to receive that step, it's not going to like try to process them right away. So yeah, it got a little bit hairy because I wanted to do it that way, and I didn't want to do like a more naive approach of just like pulling every user from the database and running them through queries, generating thousands of queries or something.
Right. Yeah. Or like pushing more of that, should they get an email, to like a select, and then running some Ruby code to be like, oh, nope, they don't. Like,
yeah. And it does a little bit of that. And there was an intentional trade-off there, because when I first started the project, actually, my idea was that segments would actually just be queries. Because if segments are queries, you can basically merge them into, especially if you're using just active record, you can merge them into other queries and combine them, so that it works very nicely for like, if you just define a bunch of segments that are queries, you can combine them all and then it just run a single query to pull the users. But I actually walked back on that approach because I realized like most of the information I already have built that tells me like, should a person, like, are they part of the segment, is already in my user model. So I've already built out a lot of that in Ruby. Just like, do I want to send it to someone who is already paying me? Like, I already have that as a Boolean, like a predicate method on my user. So it's really nice to actually just use Ruby to define your segments, because then it's just Rails. So there's a bit of an intentional, like, it's not quite as performant because you still have to pull the users and then run that segment check in Ruby. But I thought that was that was worth it, basically, so that I could call Ruby on my users for segments.
So are you talking about like when I define a campaign and I say like segment and give it like a proc or lambda, like that's what it evaluates each time? Is that?
Yeah. So it evaluates that before it would send the user an email or not. And so
that sounds like a really good trade-off. Like, yeah, because that's a lot easier place to like define that logic. It's just right there versus trying to, I like that.
Part of the problem, going back to the SaaS marketing tools like Intercom, Customer.io, et cetera, and even Segment, is that they all have segmenting built into them. So like in Intercom, you build segments that then you can send to. But really, I mean, like when you're building segments, you're building logic. So you're kind of like, you're scripting or programming. Basically, it's a UI in those tools. You're still like writing custom logic, essentially. And so you get conditionals. There's a lot happening there. And if you're using a lot of different tools, like you're basically like spreading duplicating the same logic across all of them. And I realized like I had the same problem when I went to implement that in SQL in Ruby, because I realized, well, now I'm just like, I'm duplicating my segments in both SQL and Ruby now. So yeah, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, Chris kind of hinted at earlier, but licensing is a bit different from, I guess, other projects I've seen. And I too would like to, I guess, hear about how that works and how you came up with that. So
I'm using a license called the Prosperity Public license, which is a newer thing. We'll grab their URL for the show notes. But there's a few projects that are currently using it. And actually there's some listed on their website, but then there's also, I think there's a lot that are out there but not listed. But Dependabot is one of the more well-known ones. So I didn't know this, but Dependabot is open source. Their core is open source. So Dependabot core is licensed with the Prosperity Public license. And basically the way the license works is the code is completely open source and free for non-commercial use. And then for commercial use, you can use it for a 30-day trial period, but after that, it's kind of on you to pay for it, or to like whatever the process is for getting a commercial license. So I don't know, it's a little bit hand wavy because it's kind of on the honor system, because the code is out there. Like Ruby is easy to monkey patch, but I liked the idea just because it's so simple, and I like the idea of the code, like not having to deal with, like having a private gem server or figuring out how to like distribute, So I don't know. Part of it was like laziness. I didn't want to go and figure that all that stuff out just to like ship an experiment basically. But also I really like the idea of having like a truly open source project that you also get paid for.
It's kind of like, it's similar in essence to like Sidekick with the free version and the pro version, but you get all of those features, not just, the open source stuff, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
And that is a sustainable way, hopefully, to, continue putting in effort into the project, where it's like, you might build all the features you need, but making some money off of it, you'll be willing to add more features that like the community needs or whatever, because you'll be able to, afford that time, hopefully,
Yeah. Yeah. We also considered going with like more of the open core, like the Sidekick model. So like you have an open source core and then some sort of pro version that you buy that is closed. And I think the benefit, like one of the benefits of that is that you really like having like a true open source, like that's the least friction in my opinion for like actually using something, is if it's MIT licensed or something or whatever. Like you have a chance of getting much more, like many more users of it potentially. Like I think there's a little bit more friction if you're not sure, like, well, I'm going to have to pay for this. So, this really like forces you to find out if people are willing to pay for it or not.
And it seems a little better than doing like the sponsorship thing, which is kind of sponsoring you as a person more than it is like a specific project. So it kind of aligns it. Money goes directly to the project, which I think is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. We thought about that. I don't think GitHub do they have organization sponsors yet? I feel like it's something that they're working on.
Yeah. I can't remember. I think I read something about that recently. Yeah. So yeah, they may have that where it gets shared between the team or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about that too. But yeah, we wanted to release this kind of under the company, especially since it's us. Like we're the primary customer right now. But yeah, like we'll find out. It's very uncharted territory though, because like I don't know a lot of people who are trying to do this, like whatever, how like solve the problem. How do you have your code out there and then get people to pay for it? My suspicion is that it might be a little bit of longer. Like I think the project might need to be out there and develop a little bit before it gets like a large user base, especially since it's like any new project is going to need a little time to mature or whatever. But that's kind of one benefit of this model, is that it's already out there, so people can kind of use it as it grows or whatever.
I like that you called it a hand wavy license, because all I can think about is you talking about the hand wavy icon. It's called Heya. It's very fitting.
That's the real hand waving. Also the sequel.
This is cool.
It's going back to the open source thing for a quick second.
Yeah.
When I joined CodeFund's code base is completely open source. So anyone could go clone it and get it up and running. And one of my buddies was like, I don't understand how like you guys do that. Like what's to stop someone from, cloning the app, like renaming it and then selling their own product? And I was like, well, number one, they're not going to get the experience they're going to get with us. And I was like, and number two, good luck. There's so much like baked in there, like good luck cloning it and starting a business.
Yeah. That's so. How is that model working out for you guys? Is it working really well? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, I love it. I love that I get to reference, like point people to things like in the code that I've done, or we do cool things and then we get to share it, or we'll blog about some feature we wrote, or just being able to like, oh, I can go grab this really cool thing I did at work and I don't have to worry about, it's like behind an IP or whatever. So we're like we're solely focused on open source. So
sure,
it's only fitting.
Yeah, totally. Are you doing anything like any kind of licensing or anything like that? Or is it just like a service that you run? Because that's one thing I had to figure out was like, because we do have somewhat of a licensing scheme for this, which I can tell you about, but
we have a like GPL, I think, license on the actual repo, but like CodeFund is not something you can buy. So
right, that's what. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
On Heya, I didn't want to just completely rely on the honor system, just because I know people kind of forget. They will forget to pay you if you don't ask them to. So we do we actually have like a licensing, like a key system so we can generate a license key when someone actually purchases, or even for the free version like that we give to bootstrappers. So we can give each person a unique key that basically just disables a warning in the free version that it puts it out in your console when you run it. So it's just kind of a reminder like, hey, this is a trial version, which I don't know how that will work, but that's the extent of what we're doing now.
I had a question about, I don't know if it's on your roadmap or it's like you're just tell people your programmers deal with it. So like when a user gets subscribed to a campaign, but maybe they want to unsubscribe to the campaign, like, is that something you've on your roadmap, or is that just like figure out your notifications yourself?
Yeah. So that brings up a good point. Something I wanted to mention that I really like about Heya is that I've tried to build it to solve like a very specific problem and then also be interoperable with the rest of the Ruby gem ecosystem. And so Andrew Kane, who does Ahoy and like 1,000 other gems that very prolific gem author, has a gem called Mailkick that is built specifically for the purpose of managing unsubscribes in emails. And so at Honeybadger, we're actually just using Mailkick to do. We have like unsubscribe links in our emails that go out that are not like purely transactional, and that's worked really well. And the cool thing about integrating like Heya and Mailkick is just like literally like Mailkick uses Ruby. Like you can check user dot whatever opt out like as a method on the user to check out if they're opted in or opted out. You just like drop that into a segment for Heya, and then it excludes anyone who opted out. So it's like kind of a one-liner integration, and then I guess editing some templates to add your unsubscribe links. But
I don't know if it's because Andrew has maybe like 200 other really good gems, but I had not heard of Mailkick, and this is really cool.
Yeah. I was really, really stoked when I found that one. It came in really handy. And that's the same idea with like the mail down gem as well. It's another one that like plays really nicely with Action Mailer. And since this is all just Action Mailer, really, like it all works together. So you can kind of use it to build your own, semi-custom system, but it's still very simple, in my opinion.
It makes sense that like that wouldn't be a problem that you would want to solve, like unsubscribing, because there's several different ways to do it. And that might not be the way somebody wants to implement it.
I'd like to try not to. And I think like I've thought about it because like I would in the future, I do have ideas for building additional like intercom functionality into this. So like, there's nothing that says we couldn't like send if we had a little like an in-app inbox or something, like a messages inbox or something for the user, like we could send messages to that inbox in-app from a campaign. Like it doesn't have to be an email. And even right now, like Heya supports a block syntax for steps. So you can basically perform any action instead of an email if you want to on a particular step. So you could send a text message or send a message to a in-app thing. Like it doesn't really matter what it is. So, but I think like if I do go that route, I would probably come up with like a modular way of doing it. So provide an additional gem that, integrates with it or something, as opposed to like creating some sort of monolithic like intercom in your app type experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is really cool. I also noticed that you say free license up to 1,000 users.
Yes.
And then my favorite thing is try user.count in production to see if you qualify.
Yeah, that was like the simplest like way we found to like convey like what a user is, because it's not immediately apparent like all the time like when you say user. Yeah, so it's like users in your database.
This is cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to try this sometime soon, and I want to walk through all of that because it's something that like I use ConvertKit on GoRails for some welcome emails and stuff, but like it is so overkill, and I know that my use of ConvertKit is like very minimal, and like the automations, I'm doing nothing more than like send this email, then this one, and I don't need it. So this would fit perfect. And then also like I don't need any like Markdown will be perfect for what I'm doing. Like it's just text for the most part, maybe bold, maybe underlines or links or whatever, but no table formats, layouts, and images all over the place and whatever. Like it's simple. So this would be like the perfect fit for my use case. So I'm excited to try it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, let me know how it goes when you do. We use ConvertKit for I run a newsletter called Leveling Up that you can subscribe to at Honeybadger.io, but it's got a larger user, like a different subscription like user base than our app does. And so like ConvertKit still works well for like more bulk, like subscription newsletter style things. Like I didn't really build Heya for that. I built it to tackle the user messaging in a software as a service or in an app like specifically, which I think I agree with you. Like I think that is more transactional in nature than like sending someone, like adding them to your marketing list or something. So so like I've targeted this very much at like software as a service, user messaging, as opposed to like marketing, which I think is an important distinction.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else you want to say before we're done?
I don't think so.
Well,
check out Heya.
Yeah, of course.
And Honeybadger, I guess.
I like the dark mode on Honeybadger.
Thank you. Yeah, we were super excited to get. That was one of Kevin's early contributions, and yeah, me too.
When I first started as a Rails developer, Honeybadger was what we used, and I have loved it ever since.
That is amazing to hear. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Thank you for using it.
Yeah. And anytime I have to use something else, I'm like, but it's not as simple. Where's the buttons I want? Yeah. You guys are doing great. I love the product. Also, if we haven't said it, you guys podcast on Founder Quest, right?
Yeah. FounderQuestPodcast.com. If you want to subscribe to that, we're kind of covering just like building the business, and it's just the three of us founders chatting every week basically about like what we're doing and like business developer topics. We're all developers. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. For Heya, it's heya.email. Honeybadger is Honeybadger.io. And I guess if people want to follow me on my new Twitter account, and I know it's Hey Josh Wood, all one word. So that's my new name.
Shouldn't that be Heya Josh Wood?
Heya. I thought about it, but it just isn't the same. Like if you're calling, you kind of mentioned me, and it's like Hey Josh Wood. Like it doesn't flow as well if it's Heya.
Was your old handle taken?
So when you quit Twitter, like completely delete your account, they say that no one can re-register. Your name is gone. Like it's disabled. But like the week after I left Twitter, some other random dude had like registered it, but hasn't said anything since. So like, it's just, I don't know. So apparently if you do delete your handle, like it can be re-registered again, which was kind of like that kind of created some confusion until I like got all the links removed from profiles and things. Cause it's like going to this random guy that is definitely not me. So yeah.
I went back and because I am weak and I know I'll probably get back on Twitter one day.
Don't do it, man.
I actually did go back and just reclaim my handle. Like it's just private and I don't even know the password to it right now. But I like if you search my name, it still links there like everywhere on the internet. And so I didn't want somebody to like roll in and be like, "What's up? I'm Jason."
Yeah, there could be some identity conflict there, but yeah, I don't know. You're giving me about this, but you got 1 foot back on Twitter already, Jason. So
that's true.
I totally get. Twitter's addictive. Yeah, I won't get started on a rant about Twitter, but I still hold all the same opinions that I've voiced in the past.
I still think it's a dumpster fire, but I miss it so much.
Yeah, it's a little. It's especially harder right now, when I think like I said, we're not really going to meetups. We're not going to conferences. I mean, this is great, to be honest. Like, getting on face to face, just chatting on podcasts is cool. So maybe we should do more of this.
I agree.
It's a good time to start a podcast, right?
It's always a good time to start a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking time out to come chat with us. It's good to have you back.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back as our third time returning guest and just every time
you got to go through like all your other guests first now. So, and then come back to me. So
perfect.
It's great chatting with you guys.
Yeah, it's good catching up. Hopefully we'll get to hang out in real life at some point in the near future.
Yeah, for sure. Or maybe I'll see some of you at the RailsConf hallway track, the virtual hallway track next week.
Yeah, I definitely plan on doing that. Sounds like fun.
Cool. All right. Well, maybe we'll catch up then.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you later.
See ya.
This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Linode. With 11 data centers worldwide, including their newest data center in Sydney, Australia, enterprise-grade hardware, S3-compatible storage option, and their next-generation network, Linode delivers the performance you expect at a price that you don't. Get started on Linode today by going to linode.com/remote Ruby.